Hello,
Blog
everybody.
Talk
Wow.
Radio.
What a great chat that was with Phil Mackey. He is, I can tell you, as great of a radio personality as he is even a better human being. Prayers go out to him, and let's hope that he doesn't actually die on the way up there, because I don't think anybody wants to hear just Judd on the radio and Dave Harrigan for 4 hours. I don't think really anybody could deal with that. But moving on, so I've had 3 guests on over the course of the last hour and a half. My final guest is going to be Tom Gamboa. He has a new book called My Life in Baseball. He talks about being in the game and one night in Chicago that actually ended up kind of being really scary and made Tom famous for not the right reasons. So I am pleased to bring on former Kansas City Royals first base coach and baseball lifer, and now I can say published author, Tom Gamboa. Tom, how you doing today?
Hey, Devlin, how are you? And I had to laugh because as Tony Muser and I worked together in 5 different organizations. And, of course, he was the manager at Kansas City when I was the first base coach. And when Tony found out that I had a book published, he said, Gamby, you're the only guy on the planet that has written a book that's never read one. and that's not too far from the truth. But it's good to be on your show, and I enjoy talking to you, Devlin.
Well, I appreciate you giving me a half an hour of your time. I did. So you just got done with a golf tournament. How'd you do?
Oh, Devlin, I got to be honest. I lost on the last hole. It was a match play tournament with our rival. I live in Palm Springs, California, and I played good today. I didn't make any putts, but I got to be honest. The guy beat me fair and square, but it went right down to the 18th hole. And he was a good guy. We had a good time and shared a beer together. And I bowed out to come in here and spend some time on your show.
Well, I greatly appreciate it. I appreciate it more than you know. So you have been a manager in the minor leagues as high as AAA with Toledo in the International League and Albuquerque in the PCL. You've also been a major league first base, third base, and bullpen coach for both the Cubs and the Royals. But in September of 2016, something kind of cool happened. You were a bench coach for Israel for the World Baseball Classic. Can you talk about that?
Oh, I'll tell you, that was kind of a coup de grace to my career, just by happenstance that this World Baseball Classic, as fans know, Major League Baseball kind of took a page from the World Cup soccer in an effort to expand baseball literally worldwide that are made to developing countries to promote baseball in their various countries. And Team Israel, Jerry Weinstein, has been a personal and a baseball friend of mine for over 40 years. He was the manager at Team Israel, and the players had to be of descent of whatever country that they played for. But the coaching staff did not have to be. But in Israel's case, they had an all-Jewish coaching staff. But unfortunately, the bench coach's mother-in-law went into hospice, and on short notice, they needed somebody. Jerry made a push for me. Peter Kurtz, the president of Israel Baseball, said, get him here. And lo and behold, we beat Brazil, Great Britain, and Pakistan to qualify for the first time in Israel's history to get into the World Baseball Classic. And last February, I got a chance to go to 2 countries I'd never been to, South Korea, which we won the pool there, and then we advanced to Japan. And unfortunately, we got beat, but we came within 1 win of going to Dodger Stadium and getting a chance to play in the U.S. So it was a big thrill for me personally. Great way to end my career in front of 57,000 diehard fans at the Tokyo Dome. And it was thrilling to be a part of Team Israel and see players play their heart out for the country of Israel.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's go back a while. You were drafted out of Notre Dame High School in Sherman Oaks, California, as a first baseman by the Orioles, but you decided to attend UCSB, and you and I have one thing in common. We have a degree in history, and you got a full scholarship there. You played primarily center field, but a little bit of first base for the Gauchos for 3 years.
Boy.
However, you were on Big West Conference honors in 1969 and 1970.
Yeah, boy, you've done your homework. I think the most famous Gaucho of recent days is Jim Rome. He always talks about being a Gaucho, and
sure.
When I went to Santa Barbara in the fall of '66, they were actually in what was called the CIBA, California Intercollegiate Baseball Association, with USC, UCLA, Stanford, Cal, and to be honest, Santa Barbara was tired of finishing in the basement, and they got an endowment to upgrade their sports program, and my best friend and I both were given full scholarships, and so we got a chance to room together, play together, and be a part of the baseball growth of UCSB. I was real proud a couple of years ago when the Gauchos, for the first time in their history, made it to Omaha to the Final 8 of the College World Series. So that was a thrill.
Absolutely, absolutely. So in the 80s, you spent quite a bit of time in the Milwaukee Brewers organization, well, I guess from 78 to 82. In 84, you were manager of the Beloit Brewers, which was their Class A Midwest team. You won Manager of the Year. You won the division. In 85, you managed Stockton Ports, which was their Class A California League, to a North Division championship. What do you remember about those 2 years winning a division?
Oh, those were fun years, Devlin. I was fortunate that when I managed in Beloit in '84, he had a big first baseman named Joey Meyer from the University of Hawaii that baseball fans will remember. Big Steve Falboni, who used to play for the Yankees, the Kansas City Royals.
Yep.
Joey Meyer weighed like 280 pounds, but he was very athletic. He won the Triple Crown, and God knows he didn't get any infield hits, so the batting title was legit. And we had a great team. We started off bad in the cold weather, but that club won 67 of its last 100, and we won the pennant by about 14 games. And the next year, I took most of those guys with me to the Cal League, which was a high Class A league, and we battled Mark McGuire and Walt Weiss, who were playing for the Oakland A's farm club at Modesto all year long. We were fortunate enough to beat them in the playoffs, but Will Clark, a Fresno San Francisco Giant team, ended up beating us for the championship. But those were 2 real fun years.
Absolutely, absolutely. So 1986, you move into the Detroit Tigers organization. You were manager of the Bristol Tigers in the Appalachian League. In 87, you managed the Glen Falls Tigers, which was at that time their AA team in the Eastern League. And then you were the minor league field coordinator 87 through 90. Can you kind of talk about what those 80s Tigers teams were like? I mean, obviously everybody knows the 84 Tigers team, but did you have a lot of talent coming up on those teams that produced in the major leagues?
Yeah, that was a fun era for me personally, because Bill LaJoy was one of the last of the old school diehard baseball guys. You know, we're in an era now since Theo Epstein's success at Boston and at Chicago, that as baseball fans know, most of the general managers now are coming out of Harvard and Dartmouth and Ivy League schools. But Joy was a grassroots diehard baseball guy that managed in the low minors, scouted for years and years. It was a real privilege that he reached out to hire me and bring me into the Tiger system, and a chance to work with Sparky Anderson, because the Tigers were great in those years. And so those were the Ellen Trammell, Lou Whitaker, Jack Boris, Kurt Gibson years, and it was fun to be a part of that action in spring training. And So my personal years, the guys that I managed, Chris Hoyles was probably my favorite player for tenure at Detroit. Fortunately, I traded him for Fred Lynn. Fred was near the end of his career, but helped the Tigers to win a division championship. Hoyles went on to Baltimore, where for the whole decade of the 90s, averaged close to 30 home runs, drove in 90 runs a year. I would have loved to have seen him doing that at Detroit. But I also had a left-handed pitcher named Scotty Aldred that made it in the big leagues with the Tigers. Milt Tyler played several years of center field with Detroit. And our number one pick, a catcher named Phil Clark, struggled on the defensive end, but he could really hit. And both him and his brother Gerald spent some time in the big leagues. So those were fun years, my times with the Tigers. And of course, I idolized Sparky Anderson and the Big Red Machine when I was a youngster growing up. But getting the chance to work with Sparky hand in hand at Detroit toward the end of his career, that was fun, and I learned a lot from him.
Absolutely. So after moving on from the Tigers organization, you were the director of minor league instruction for the Padres from 91 through 94, and then you were the minor league field coordinator from 95 to 98. What do you remember about that?
Well, I loved working for the Padres because I'm born and raised in Southern California, and it was nice to be kind of close to home during the Padre years. But when the team got sold, and my boss ended up, Ed Lynch became the general manager of the Cubs. It was a tough call, but I'm glad I went with the Cubs because working in Chicago, I got to say, was the best job that I had in my 44 years in baseball. When being the field coordinator, you're kind of like a principal. The Cubs had 6 farm teams. I was in charge of all 6 of them, hiring the managers and coaching staffs of the 6 clubs. The coordinator kind of determines what's going to be taught, how it's going to be taught, what the attitude's going to be like, what the discipline's going to be like. So there's a lot of responsibility, and of course the real feather in our cap during my years as field coordinator was we signed a youngster out of Crockett, Texas named Kerry Wood, who went on to become a nationally famous guy. And it's too bad, but for an arm injury, Kerry would have had an incredible career. But what he did in '98, lead us into the playoffs, was really something. And getting a chance, as I mentioned in my book, firsthand, to see him strike out 20 against the Houston Astros when they had a great team and the 4 killer bees, Bagwell, Biggio, Barry, and Derek Bell, striking out 20 of the 27 outs. That was the second best game that I saw in my whole lifetime.
Yeah, and Lance Berkman too. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and so in 2000 you managed the Dodgers AAA team in the PCL, the Albuquerque Dukes. You won the division. And 2005 you managed the Arkansas Travelers of the AA Texas League for the Angels. What do you remember about those two teams?
Well, those were all fun years, Devlin. And the 05 team, in 05, the Angels hired me to manage their AA team. And at the last day of spring training, Mike Scioscia took me out to dinner. And I said, Sos, I know you've already won a World Series. Your best years are still to come. Because that year in Arkansas, Mike Napoli led the league in home runs and RBIs. He was my catcher. He went on to not only have a good career with the Angels, but once he got traded, whether he went to Texas or Boston or Cleveland, every club that Napoli went to, they ended up going to the World Series. And he, along with Ken Caminiti, were 2 of the best clubhouse guys that I ever saw. That regardless of white, black, Latin, everybody gathered to Napoli. He was a leader among men, and everybody loved him. His leadership skills were terrific. And I had Kendry Morales, who's still playing for the Toronto Blue Jays, as switch-hitting power guy, was our first baseman. Howie Kendrick who I thought was going to be like Bill Madlock and win batting championships, has a career average over 290. He was my second baseman. Eric Ibar, who's had a long, illustrious big league career, was my shortstop. And three of my five starters were Jared Weaver, Irvin Santana, and Joe Saunders. So we pretty much knew before we broke spring training we were going to have a winning team. And all those guys went on to play with the Angels afterwards.
And have a lot of success with them, too. Yeah, absolutely. So 2011, you ended up managing the Inland Empire 66ers, although you did have to retire halfway through due to your mom having advanced cancer. But 2011 was actually a kind of a decent year for you. When I introduced you, I should have said, in addition to author, I should have said movie star, because I completely forgot that you played Scout Martinez in the movie Moneyball. Can you talk about that? That's one of my favorite baseball movies.
Yeah, well, you know, it was a terrific movie, and not because I was in it, because if you blink, you'd miss me. But one of my former players, Chad Kruder caught, I believe, Brian's 5,000th strikeout and one of his no-hitters in Texas. But Chad had an extensive career with several big league teams as a backup. But in my tenure in Puerto Rico, Chad had caught for me a couple different years, and he had just been fired as the baseball coach at USC when that movie was being filmed. And Bennett Miller, an Oscar-winning director but from Australia, by his own admission, Bennett knew nothing about baseball. So he hired Chad to be a technical advisor so that they would get the baseball parts right. And when they got near the scene where they needed the so-called super scout of the Mets, they had not hired the part. And Chad said, I have an ex-manager that is retired now that we could get. And that's how I got on the movie. Bennett Miller liked me, and I ended up, I actually had one scene where my face was the only thing on camera, and I had my infamous line, watching Billy Bean in high school take batting practice, where I told the area scout, I said, this son of a bitch will be drafted in the first round. And that's the beginning, the middle, and the end of my movie career, Devlin.
Well, you never know. They could make a sequel to it, and then, hey, there you go.
Yeah.
So
well, I'm glad I still get residual checks from it.
Exactly. So after that, 2012, you were California Winter League in Palm Springs. You were the field coordinator. 2014 and 2015, you went to the East Coast, and you were manager of the Brooklyn Cyclones of the New York Penn League, which is an affiliate of the Mets, and you managed them in 2016 as well. What can you tell me about the Brooklyn Cyclones?
Well, I'll tell you, I'll be forever indebted to Paul DePodesta. Paul was a vice president with the Padres when I was the field coordinator there, and later became general manager of the Dodgers. And by 2014, he was a vice president of player development for the New York Mets. After turning Paul down twice, because I was happy in retirement. I had spent 41 years in the game. I was playing a lot of tournament golf, enjoying my kids and grandkids. But Paul called me back a third time and talked me into managing the Brooklyn Cyclones because he wanted somebody that was a teacher and somebody that had been from the rookie leagues to the big leagues to kind of mentor over the young players. And, my career, Devlin, in the minor leagues, I seemed to always manage in ballparks that had antiquated stadiums. And then we would win a pennant. And then after I left, they would build these state-of-the-art ballparks. Well, for once, when I came to the Mets in 2014, a Metropolitan Credit Union ballpark, which is on the grounds of the famous Coney Island amusement park on the boardwalk. Yep. It's a state-of-the-art facility, AstroTurf, 9,000 seats, averaging almost 7 people in the park at night because of the proximity to Citi Field, the Mets, and the diehard Brooklyn Dodger fans from Ebbets Field days. they all congregate there, and I had a blast. And I told Paul it would probably only be for a year, and I liked it so much, mentoring over the kids and the younger coaches, that I did it for 3 seasons, and I had a fabulous time. I'll be indebted to Paul forever on that.
And for those people who don't know, we just touched on the movie Moneyball. The Jonah Hill character is loosely based on Paul DePodesta, so there's a little piece of trivia
Correct.
for everybody as well. Tom, you've got a book out called My Life in Baseball. The foreword was written by former major leaguer and ESPN broadcaster Doug Glanville. But what I'd like to talk about a particular event. Tell me about what happened September 19th, 2002.
Well, that's etched in my memory bank, Devil, and I don't mind talking about it because I certainly didn't do anything wrong. I was just doing my job. But we were at that time it was called Comiskey Park. Now it's U.S. Cellular Field in Chicago. And the game meant nothing because the White Sox and us, meaning the Royals, were out of the pennant race. It was a cold September night. There wasn't many people there. But in the 9th inning, 2 guys that had too much to drink and by their own admission in court had taken drugs. And we all know what mixing alcohol and drugs does. Over the little 3-foot railing behind the first base dugout. And in the middle of the 9th inning of the game, they literally attacked me from behind. And as I asked in court, why me? And the answer was, once we got on the field, you were the closest person to us, your back was turned, so you were an easy target to get the attention that we were looking for because they wanted to get on TV. And, my unfortunate luck, I was bent over with my hands on my knees at the time, as I often did between pitches. So when they hit me, my head torpedoed into the ground, and I permanently lost a portion of the hearing in my right ear. Thank God it has not gotten worse over the years, but it is what it is. I have this thing called tinnitus that doesn't hurt, but it's a nuisance. And the game was nationally televised, and I think because it was sports and violence combined, it seems like between Fox Sports and ESPN, it was shown 1,000 times on TV, and I became somewhat infamous for something that I did not do, but I was a party to. Actually, it is what it is, and I answered all the questions of the press, and like with you right now, I don't mind talking about it because I didn't do anything wrong, but as I told the press at the time, I guess I'm the new Cato Caleb. This is my 15 minutes of fame.
Absolutely. Now, if I remember that correctly, didn't they have some kind of weapon or something? Wasn't it like a small pocket knife or something? Or
yeah. One of them had a folding 3 or 4 inch pocket knife, and the FBI and the police, the fact that they found it on the field, their fear was that there was an intent to use it, but they might have been so much out of it that thank God that they didn't. Because I happened to be watching the tennis tournament as a fan when Monica Seles was attacked and stabbed on a tennis court, and thank God that did not happen to me.
Yeah. So was the permanent hearing loss, was that the only, I guess, quote-unquote injury that you suffered that night, or was there some emotional or some mental stuff after that?
No, my parents raised me, Devlin. I try to see the humor in everything. I had a team once that lost 9 games in a row. That was my longest losing streak of my Magic career. And I remember calling a clubhouse meeting, and I said, fellas, believe it or not, at some point the sun is going to shine and the worm's going to turn here. I like to think that if I was the captain of the Titanic, I would have told all the passengers that don't panic, we're just stopping for ice when they hit that iceberg. I try to just put some levity on things, but no, it's the tinnitus. Like I say, it's a nuisance, but it's not any. And other than that, the only thing that I suffered is that when our players from the first base dugout came out to jump on them, I was at the bottom of that pile, and my face got compressed into the ground so bad that my face, the right side of my face, swelled up to twice its normal size, and that's why I wanted to get me on the field and get an ice pack on it to reduce the swelling.
Sure. Yeah, I remember that vividly, and it was a horrible incident, and I'm glad that Major League Baseball has since beefed up security. I'm very glad that obviously you were okay, but that's just one chapter in Tom Gamboa, My Life in Baseball. He and David Russell co-wrote the autobiography. The sports columnist Mike Vaccaro of the New York Post describes it as a fun read, and Lloyd Carroll of the New York Sports Day describes it as a fascinating look at a baseball professional who has spent most of his life beating the bushes of baseball's minor leagues. And as I mentioned, the book's foreword is written by former major leaguer and ESPN analyst Doug Glanville. We got about a minute and a half left, Tom. What do you want to let fans know about the book? Obviously, you can buy the book on Amazon, but anything else you'd like to let them know about it?
Well, I can just tell you that for me personally, when David Russell, the writer, contacted Glanville to write a foreword, when I read it, it actually made me cry, because all my years in baseball, I never realized the influence as a coach that I had over the people that I was coaching until I read the 3 or 4 page foreword that Glanville wrote, and what he felt about me playing for me, not only with the Cubs, but for 2 pennant-winning years down in Puerto Rico in the wintertime. And that made quite an impression on me. But I think, as I used to have an agent in baseball, he told me I was one of the few people in the game that had managed pennant winners at every level except the big leagues. I had clubs that won at Rookie League, OA, High A, Double A, Triple A, 7 of my 10 years in Latin America in winter ball, and I scouted for 10 years. So I think a baseball fan will enjoy stories from a no-name guy that had a lengthy career in virtually every aspect of the game.
Absolutely. And then, Tom, where can fans get the book at? It's Tom Gamboa, My Life in Baseball. Where can they purchase the book?
Well, it's on most people are buying it on Amazon.com, and I'm told It's also at Barnes & Noble and Target.com is what I've been told. But I know most of my kids and the millennials, they tell me that they're getting it on. To be honest, I didn't know what Amazon was. I'm kind of an old school guy, but I'm well aware of it now. And I guess
Sure.
they ship the book within 2 days. But like I say, I think it's a fun read, and David did a good job of writing it, because my kids and grandkids tell me that it sounds like me talking. But I talked into a tape recorder. David Russell did a terrific job writing it.
Excellent. Well, I think that's a great way to close. Tom, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you coming on my podcast and giving me a half an hour of your time and sharing some of your baseball memories with me. I thank you so much, and I hope we can do it again someday soon. And I'm gonna send that copy of your book out to you, and I'd appreciate it if you'd sign it for me.
Oh, for sure I would. Devlin, I enjoy our interaction on the Messenger on the computer, and I've had a great time with you these 30 minutes, and I hope baseball fans have enjoyed listening to you and I share some stories. Thanks again.
Thanks again, Tom. Appreciate it. All right,
okay.
Everybody, that was Tom Gamboa. He is a former Major League Baseball coach. He is also an author, and as you could tell, he is a actor as well. Tom Gamboa. His book, My Life in Baseball, is available Target.com, Amazon.com, and Barnes & Noble bookstores near you. Go out and pick it up. I've already got my copy ordered. He's a great guy. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll see you next week.